we knew as soon as the first plane showed up what was happening. Everyone was trained, highly trained for a year and a half before that, what to do.
Makes me afraid that we're going to distance ourselves from what happened.
It's estimated about 100 World War II veterans will be at Friday's ceremony.
The ones that should be honored is 1,177 shipmates of the Arizona, and the whole 2,403 from the whole military services were killed that day.
Conter's disappointed he can't attend this year's event, but plans to be back next year and hopes his shipmates will
be back next year.
Jim Mendoza, Hawaii News Now.
Wow.
They needed a copy of that. This here's, guys, about 6 years ago I was the main speaker at the cemetery up here in Red Bluff also, and the guy made that from Oregon. He gave it to me. Wow. And here's something that you should really have a picture of and put in. That's vessel there alongside the Arizona being pulled away, but here's the Black Cats, the VP-11. We flew all night long, you know, and that's my high school picture there. And a lot of medals. So I just have to get another case because she's got that.
So
the first year that one of us haven't been to the ceremony.
this is the first year. So how do you said you're gonna go back next year?
Yeah.
And
God willing.
your doctor told you not to go this year, huh?
Yeah, she wrote a letter. She said, she called me this morning before I went, and what are you doing, how you doing, and everything. So, well, we crossed the equator in July of 1940, and I was passed right after the third-class quartermaster, and well, I was in deck force for about 6 to 8 months, and anyway, I said to Johnny, he said, let's go to flight school. And I said, I don't think we can because you're gunner's mate and I'm a quartermaster and we're right on rates. So we kind of dropped it. And in walked Admiral Calhoun from Commander Base Force. And he said, well, there's nothing against that. It's just that most of the aviation put in for flight school. And they've been around the planes, so they take the flights and they natural. He said, when you go to your senior aviator, take your flight and take your exam and have the executive officer send your request over to me to sign. He says, because I signed them. And so I went back and told Johnny that, and third week in September, fourth week in September, I forget what it was, got hold of Lieutenant Ragsdale, our pilot, senior pilot, and told him, and we had to take an exam, and so he briefed us on the parachutes and sit in the rear seat of the plane with the guns on and everything. My first airplane ride in life was off a number 3 catapult off of, in the Arizona at sea.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Pulled it off and back. We went 5,000 feet, messed around and came back down. And on November the 26th of 41, we went out to sea for our 10 days. And our Admiral Kidd and Captain Lockwood said we should be out to sea all the time. Because we knew that we were going to have a battle with the Japanese, we just didn't know when. We went out on the 26th, and we were supposed to come in on the 8th, Monday the 8th. And Friday, we got a message from Washington to return to port immediately and stay in port for the weekend. And that was Friday. So we came in on Friday afternoon, and it was only time, and all the time we're out there, we had all 8 battleships in port at one time, and all of the fleet, the whole Pacific Fleet, in port. They ordered us from Washington, and they thought they were having a peace talk or something. And they took off from their carriers at 6:30, and they came in there. They got in there at 5 minutes to 8. They came over Conter Bay. They hit there first, and they came around the bend at Pearl Harbor, and had about 200 planes from the Japanese carriers bombing Pearl Harbor and Hickam Field and everything else. And we were on duty, and we were ready to hoist the flag on the stern of the Arizona when they first dropped the first planes. We knew as soon as the first plane showed up what was happening. Everyone was trained, highly trained for a year and a half before that, what to do. like Commander Fuqua said, that everybody on the Arizona lived up to their honor and did the greatest job that they ever could in the time that they had. Because everybody was trying to get to see them. Nevada was behind us at Fox 10, and they took off up the channel, and of course as soon as they got up the headquarters, all the Japanese bombers started hitting them, and that's when the chief quartermaster beached it and didn't listen to the officer there. He knew it, because they were going to sink that in the channel, and then the channel had been closed for 6 months, and nobody could have done anything. So anyway, he took him a year to get a Navy Cross out of it afterward, but he did. The raid was over, and then the second wave came in, and of course we thought the Japanese were going to come in and land, but they knew they couldn't, and so we fought the fire. We got the guys, well, they started coming out of the fire, and Commander Fuqua, who was our senior officer aboard, because Captain Van Valkenburg and Admiral Kidd had both gone to the bridge and got killed on the bridge when it exploded. At 9 minutes after 8 in the morning was when that lucky bomb, a 1,600, 1,700 pound armor-piercing bomb, went through the starboard side of the Arizona by number 2 turret, through 5 decks and into the lower handling room, and exploded at 1 million pounds of powder. The bow came about 30, 40 feet out of the water and settled straight back down in, and was a fire from the mainmast forward. And everybody coming out of the fire wanted to get over the side, and we had to keep them from jumping over the side because it was burning and they had been killed. And Commander Fuqua told us to lay them down, even if we had to render them unconscious, until we could get them into a boat to get them to the hospital ship. So the second wave came in, and of course they got shot up pretty bad. And then the fleet, they went back and landed on their carriers north of Oahu, north of the Hawaiian Islands. We kind of fought the fire till Tuesday, because it was burning, and everything was burning in the harbor. And we had all the battleships. California was at Fox 2, and we had the Oklahoma and the Maryland and the West Virginia and Tennessee, and the Pennsylvania was in dry dock, and there was Utah was over on the other side of the island, and the Japanese were reporting that they sunk a carrier, which was the Utah, but it was made into a target ship in 1931 or 2 or something like that, and it was in port instead of out. We were there for about 3 days till Tuesday, and then we had to let it cool down, and then we dove on the ship, a bunch of us, 15 of us, with Pete Uzar, our main diver, and we recovered 50, 60 bodies is all, out of the officers' quarters and after in the ship under the mainmast, because nobody could get forward to the mainmast, and it was all blown apart. And we lost 1,177 men that time.
Wow.
There was about 135 of us on the ship that got off, and the rest were, and you know, we've been out there 2 years. They brought their wives over, some of them, and we were ashore when the raid started. So it was 45 minutes before they got back to their ships. But the first wave was over with, and bombing 90% of it was done. So.
So how did you survive the?
Well, I just, like I said, I was between number 3 turret and the mainmast, and when the bomb hit over by number 4 turret in the shape, that knocked out Commander Fuqua, our senior officer, lived aboard, and some other people, but 3 or 4 of us over there, the blast didn't even touch us, because it went on the other side of the turret. And then we got, Commander Fuqua came to and took charge, and he ordered us off the ship about 40 minutes after the bombing, because the ship was burning so bad. And it was hell to pay for a long wait. We had about 16 people stacked up on the, waiting to get them into the light post to get them to the hospital. And that's where Lauren Bruner and Don Stratton were in the fire control tower up above the forward mast, and when it blew up, and they couldn't get out of there, but there was a guy in a vessel, a boatswain, who threw them a line, and they secured the line and went across that line to the vessel. And when three of them got across, the line burnt in two and dropped the other two into the water. And they got burned over 75% of their body. Up to the 5th, 6th of January, for a month we hadn't got any liberty, and I got liberty on Sunday, and I went over to Hester's house for dinner. The first time I got to see her, my clothes were hanging up in their closet because their mother and father took me in like a son and watched me. I go to their house, and of all things, Admiral Calhoun walked in. And he says, "I thought I signed your orders to Pensacola, though." And I said, "We lost him on the Arizona," and explained to him what happened. And it wasn't 3 days later, he'd pulled Johnny off a destroyer and me out of the base force, and we were on the Lurleen back to San Francisco. And we hit San Francisco, and he went through Texas, I went through Denver, and went into Pensacola the 3rd, 4th week in January of '42. And 8 months later, November the 15th, we were the first to graduate from our class and got our Navy wings.
Wow.
We're called Naval Aviation Pilots. The officers were called Naval Aviators. We were called Naval Aviation Pilots. We got out of flight school, and I was transferred to San Diego into VP-11, and we waited an extra 3 weeks there at North Island to get the planes painted black and cover up all, because we were the first Black Cat Squadron to fly all night long. We went from San Diego, we flew to Conway Bay, and it was a 19.5-hour flight from San Diego to Conway Bay. Then we went out to Midway for 2 weeks to help the Air Force navigate, because they were flying out of Midway and flying back in. They weren't used to navigating over the water, and they were losing a couple of planes because they'd go out 500 miles, 600 miles, and 100-mile crosswind, they'd miss the island coming back. So we went out and taught them how to look at the ocean, and say you got 15 knots of wind here from a certain direction, so we'd have 4 degree drag offset for navigating. And we were there just about 6 weeks. On March 1st, we took off for Perth, Australia. That's on the southwestern coast of Australia, and we operate out of Exmouth Gulf up in the north coast, and flew patrol in the Indian Ocean, but we also flew in from Exmouth Gulf into the Philippines, and we rescued some people out of Manila that had gotten into the jungles in southern Philippines with wives and children, and we rescued 20, 25 of them. Instead of flying at 500 feet over the water to stare at the Japanese fighter, we had to go up to 8,000 feet to save gas. We went up to 8,000 feet, and we flew into Exmouth Gulf, and we were in the air for 23 and a half hours. And we ran out of gas just as we got into Exmouth Gulf and landed. And they pulled us in, and gassed up and flew the people on down to Perth, and we got shot down in September of '43, and just before dark, an hour and a half hour before dark. At that time we carried 12 or 14 parachute flares in the right in the plane, you know. September, the 3rd week of September, we got shot down that time. We landed, we were on fire. Because what happened is shell hit one of those parachute flares and exploded in our waist hatch. Wow. And we could on fire from the engines aft. We had 2,000-pound bombs and 2 500-pound bombs aboard. But we had to land and meet it, and we got everybody out the pilot's escape hatch, but we didn't get any lifeboats out or life jackets. And we had 9 men in the crew, so we went into the ocean, and that's when the one thing I gave you, Gordon Kennington, our PPC, was a full lieutenant and very sharp and damn good guy. But he said to the guys, he said, "I don't think anybody, we're 7 miles offshore. We got 15 knots of wind here. I don't think it's going to be dark before an hour and 45 minutes." He said, "So I don't think you say your prayers." And I said, "Bullshit." I said, stay in line, you're not dead yet. Don't panic. I don't want anybody to panic, because you're dead if you panic. So just get in line, circle, hold hands, take care of each other. One guy gets tired, the other two guys hold him up. Shark comes up, hit him in the nose as hard as you can, nowhere else but in the nose. And so we did that for 40 minutes.
And there were sharks that came up
we
to you?
had 6 or 8 sharks around us all. And the first one I hit in the nose when it came around, and then they believed me. They never had survival training, you know, and like we had then, I had.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, that was the best thing that they had learned. When they saw me do it, it worked, and they did it. And that was the best survival they had in the tiger pit, in the ocean. So anyway, PBOI, our skipper, Cliff Camel, saw us on fire, and he was over there 3 or 4 miles away, heading up towards New Britain to go up through Rabaul, and we were over on the east coast of New Guinea, going up to WWII. And so they came over, made a circle, saw we didn't have boats out, and they dropped one of their lifeboats to us from 50 feet, 100 feet. Just, it must have been 15 minutes before dark. It was getting dark. And I swam out and got it, brought it back, and we got everybody in it. And we got into the New Guinea about 2 o'clock in the morning. Got them hidden in the jungle, and I told them, don't even let gas. Just shut up and stay here. And so they didn't say one word. And that was that night, and then we were all day the next day in the jungle, and TD4 and I watched the Japanese patrol to keep them away from them. And that night then, at 2 the next morning, I heard this noise, and I told TD, who was our plane captain, he was with me working, the guy. And I said, that's a PT boat. They're coming after, we better go out. So we said, you guys stay here, don't make a move, because you know damn well if they catch you, your head comes off in a minute. That's all they look at, is cutting your head off. And so they shut up and stayed there, and we went out to...
With the raft, right?
With our raft.
Wow.
And we got within far from here, the street away from them, and they had those 50 calibers pointing right at us. And I said, turn the damn guns away. And one guy on the deck said, that's Conter, come on aboard. So we went aboard. We said, we gotta go back and get the other guys, 7 guys. And they said, no. And they had 3 UDT men there, which are the underwater demolition team in those days, the forerunners to the SEALs, you know. And they said, brief us, you stay here, we're going to get them. So I briefed them exactly their names, where they were located, where we did them, and how to get in there on the beach and never get hidden with their boat and everything. And they left 2:15 in the morning to go in there. They were back at 3 o'clock with all 7 men. And that's the first time those guys mentioned one word when they got aboard the PT boat. They didn't say one word for 2 days. And so anyway, we got back to the ship, Half Moon, our tender, by 8 o'clock in the morning on the PT boat, and we were going to breakfast, and we had debriefings. We there that day, had dinner that night, breakfast the next morning. The next night at 5:30, we took off in another PBY for 13 and a half hours up north of WWII and Cape Gloucester and New Britain Island. VP-11 was in combat for 22 months before they lost most of their planes and too many hours on them, and got sent back in December 1944. December the 17th, we got a call from General Kenny, and he says, we've got over 200 Coast Watchers holed up in a tribe up the Seepeak River about 100 miles from WWII, and they were like our SEALs. They were out, spread out with all these different divisions in Kavieng and Rabaul, east of Rabaul, west of Rabaul, the mountains in northern Guinea, and 16th, I think it was. He asked us if we could do something, so we said, well, we can sure try. We can go in the Seepeak River and land, But the Secret River was like a cork like this. It's 690 miles long if you go fly by the river from WWII up to the North Indian Ocean. And it's only 169 or 70 miles if you fly it just straight.
Wow.
And so we went in there 4 crews from VP-11. And we went on down by WWII, and that Secret River was always covered with clouds in the afternoon. And so we got down underneath the clouds and 50 feet off the water and flew up the river, and we had 10 to 20 feet from our wingtips to the trees as we went up the river like this. And we land, and natives pulled us in and covered us up so the Japanese couldn't come in straight. And
Cover you up with like vegetation or something to
vegetation. And
camouflage?
we got in there and they'd feed us a cup of tea, which was the awfulest tea in the world. Out of the Secret River, bad water and everything, but we'd put 3 or 4 iodine buttons in it and drink it. And in 3 days, we had 4 planes. We'd land in there and another would come in. And when we take off, we'd get off and we'd have to jump right into the clouds because the Zeros would be on our tail. And we just circle up to 9,500 feet. And as soon as we got up there, we'd turn due south, 180 degrees, and fly for an hour and 15 to 20 minutes because we had 2 peaks there, 12,000 feet on each side of us. We couldn't get that high. So 9,500 feet was our limit. We'd fly for an hour and 15 to 20 minutes. We hadn't hit a peak, so we let down on the south side and go in Port Moresby, and we'd have 15 or 16 of them, drop them off, go back and pick up another load.
Wow.
In 3 days, we rescued 219 without a problem.
Between the 4 teams.
Between the 4.
Wow.
One plane lost power and everything else, and we had to bring in from another plane, bring a part in, and the crew changed it and fixed it on the site, and took off without anybody because they were. And if you jump to the clouds, they won't fall. They couldn't go in the clouds. If you're down in the river 50 feet, they stay up here above you. Because first ones that started making passes on you, try to go into you, they hit the water and crash. So they stayed up here 2,500, 1,500 feet out here towards WWII, but in on the river where you could get to 1,000 feet and jump into the clouds, and they couldn't get you. So we go up to 9,500 feet and do due south, but anyway, we got 219 out.
Wow.
And some of those tribes they're all cannibal tribes, you know.
This is in New Guinea, you're saying?
Northern New Guinea. And they asked us to stick around for a night, and they'd go to the next tribe and get a young girl and barbecue her for us the next day. We had to explain to them, you can't say no because they'd take you. You just say, well, no, we got a boss and he wants to do this, we got to get to that. We'll come back when we get this finished to spend the night and have a party.
He didn't want to be disrespectful to these
Can't
people
be
who are,
respectful, or they'd barbecue you.
Oh my God.
So last April, when I was getting inducted in the Hall of Honor, we had Australian commanders and their wives there, and Canadians, and Great Britain, American. We had 490 people at that dinner, sit down dinner in the hangar, and I was getting inducted in the Hall of Honor, greatest honor of your life. And at my table was the air commander from Australia, the Air Force, and his wife, and had a vice admiral, and his wife, and I was there alone. And so the commander from the Australian Air Force said, Lou, we don't even let our pilots today fly over that area of northern New Guinea, because if they have any trouble and they have to bail out or crash land or anything, they're barbecued the next day. So we just won't let them fly over that area. They have to fly around it.
And
So
they told you this when again? This was just
a year ago
a year
April,
ago.
when we were down there. I get inducted into the Hall of Honor.
Wow.
The air commander told me that. So head of the Australian
Yeah.
Air
Wow.
Force. So anyway, that was in December, and Then the last of December, we got shot down the 30th of December up at Cape Gloucester. We went up to pick up a crew. They were in a boat, and they had P-40s up there. And we went down and made a pass over the boat, turned around and come back, and the P-40s came around. They thought we were Japanese going to shoot the raft out. And these stupid jerks were PBYs who were coming in to pick them up. So we had to crash land.
So it was almost like a friendly fire type of thing
and
then. Oh,
we'd gone up there because we were heading back to Perth. Half the squadron already gone. And they said to, when they called for this exercise to go up and pick these people up, why, VP-52, they hadn't ever flown in that area up there. So anyway, Pennington and I were there, and we said, we'll take the flight. We'll go up and pick them. We know right where to go and what to do. And it's only an hour and a half away from our center, you know. But they're very close. Within an hour and a half, 200 miles away from fighting to no fighting, you know, in those days. So it was nothing to fly in there. So we flew in there and made a pass to go to land. They came in, shot down, killed Lambert, our bow gunner.
no. Oh,
And
gosh.
so anyway, we had VP-52 that had flown 1,000 feet away from us, with us, to watch where we're going and learn from us. So they came over and landed and picked us up.
Thankfully, they were pretty close
They
then.
were
Watch,
they
yeah.
were 1,000 feet, half a mile away,
Yeah.
and we got shot down. So anyway, then the P-40s realized they'd made a mistake, and so when they picked us up, then we had to land and pick up the 5 men in the boat again, and then we had to drop Lambert off at the Lay and Solomon at the hospital because he died 3 days later. Then we came back to Port Moresby, so I'm back to flying. And it was that time that San Diego then sent Whidbey Island, Washington, and I flew over to the East Coast to fly some PBNs from Elizabeth City, North Carolina, to Kodiak, Alaska, to give to the Russians. And then I went into, I was transferred from there to Jacksonville, Florida, to night fighter training, because the F-7s were coming out as the first twin-engine night fighter. So they pulled a bunch of us from PBYs, and boy, in 3 days, I was made commanding officer of TDD Unit Number 1, which is Target Drone Unit Number 1 at Jacksonville. Went up to Lake City, Florida, trained there, and I got to April of 45, they sent us to Norman, Oklahoma. I said, what in the hell, Norman, Oklahoma? There's no water there. We're in the Navy. We're supposed to be around water. But anyway, we went to Norman, Oklahoma, and I was there when the war was over. And
What was that like? I mean, that must have been
well,
a good feeling, right?
we didn't have any. They didn't need any drones anymore. You know, we were the first drone unit, so they could send drones in dive bomb without pilots aboard. And anyway, I was sent down then in September of 45. Limp hangars down there were loaded with war gear. They wanted to sell it and get it out of it. So I did that until January 46th. Then I went to USC for 2 years and intelligence school in 48 at Washington, D.C. And then Korea happened in June of 50, and I was assigned as intelligence officer at Carrier Air Group 102. And I was the staff. We were at San Diego to North Island and flew ADs, and we went to Korea on the Bon Armour Shark. And I only did 28 or 29 missions, and they grounded all of us intelligence officers. We were flying, we were enlisted men, ex-enlisted men, but we got our commission in New Guinea. So I was commissioned officer. We got to Korea, we went from May to December of 51. We came back in 51, December, and I was on 3 months of special duty, and I went to Fifth Fleet in Norfolk, Virginia, and the admiral sent me to Iceland to fly in the right sea of PV, 2V, and we went out there over 50 feet over the top of the Russian fishing fleet, and the four Russian boats where they had the divers over the side going down and cutting into our international cable to find out what the military was doing.
And this was in Iceland they're diving down there?
Oh, out north of Scotland.
Wow.
They had a whole fishing fleet up there, about 16, 18 boats, and there were four of them. You could tell the difference because all of their lines were coiled up perfectly, and the decks was neat, and the guys were standing at attention practically, and the fishing boats, they were throwing nets over the side and everything else. So you just fly over, and I said to the guys, I said, if they give us one shot, sink this thing again. That's all there was to it, but they didn't give us one shot. So anyway, I came back, and I was back about 3 weeks, and the admiral said, Conter, I'm sending you down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to Special Forces training with Colonel Banks, his first unit of Special Forces. And so I went down there, and that's where I met Norman and Caesar Civitelli, and well, I'd met Herbie Brucker in Korea before, and so I was down there training for 5 months, and I got out of there, I was made SEER officer, first SEER officer in the Navy. Survival, evasion, escape, resistance to interrogation, and sabotage, espionage. So that's what my job was from 54 until 67, was train pilots and air crewmen how to live in the jungles. They got in there because the Marines were more afraid of the jungles than they were the Japanese. In Guadalcanal and New Guinea, and everything. They had to have hard on-site training. So they put it in their minds of where they were, and we had to teach them, for God's sakes, don't panic ever. I wrote some of the first survival lectures in 1953 and 4, and they're still using them today.
That's great.
It's because we just told them exactly what to do and how to do it and what not to do. So anyway, that's it.
That's amazing.